Good evening, ladies and gentle people. It is June 29th, 2010. Day 9 daily number 100 and... I actually don't know which... 147, Jesus. I was just like... It's another Day 9 daily. I can't remember which number quite exactly it is, but I finally got there, and that is great news. And here I have my trusty... It used to be a coffee mug, but now it's my trusty water mug. Because I ran out of coffee and I always just need something in my throat to keep it nice and moist during these casts. Because when you talk, for an hour straight, your voice ggets dry. Let me tell you something. If you forgot that you put water in here instead of coffee, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I drank, I was like, it's the worst, coldest coffee ever. I kept drinking it because I'm a caffeine addict. I was like, oh, God. And then I was like, that's water. What delicious water. It's actually filtered today, so it actually tastes pretty damn good. So obviously things are going great when you're drinking premium water at home. But of course, the real focus of today, the real hero of the evening, is White Raw, who's like the nicest person in the world. I got the chance to talk to him on MSN, tell him about the show, and he gave me like all these links to his replays. And White Raw, in case you didn't know, has his own personal fan site. It is white-raw.com. That is WHITE-RA.com. And you can go there, and every single game that we're going to be looking at today, tomorrow, and Thursday, all of them, you can find at whiteraw.com. So definitely go there, give him mad props, because he's a kind soul and a wicked Protoss to boot. And that, of course, the topic of the next 3 days is how unbelievably kick-ass he is. And of course, before we begin, I need to note that I've been having a few really scary ways to wake up in the middle of the night. I keep not getting a full night's rest because, for instance, once my computer rebooted in the middle of the night and I have my mic right next to my speakers, so it's just like an infinite feedback loop. Woke me up at 3 in the morning. That was scary. But last night, I was in Ventrilo and I forgot that I had it open. So I'm like lying in bed, and Dane, the famous Dane from Day 9 Daily number 65, Dane is just like, Dr. Plot, good evening, at like 3 in the morning. I was just like, God! I thought I had a nightmare about Dane. I was like, get out of my head. And like, he's over there. He's like, dude, are you okay? And I'm like, I left Ventrilo open, so I had to close it and tell him to leave me alone. And then I got a good night's rest, and that was awesome. So we're going to be looking at some PvT stuff today, some Protoss versus Terran. Cool stuff. We're going to be doing Protoss versus Protoss tomorrow and Protoss versus Zerg the day after that. So that way we get all the White Raw gamut of play. And before we started, I wanted to talk about a kind of player, kind of similar to the imaginary player we were referring to yesterday, but this kind of player doesn't actually want to know how to be good. They want to have a trick to win the game. And you've probably heard these players or seen them on forums where they're like, well, what do I do? You say, well, you need to think about this, you need to think about this, and you think about this. And they say, dude, just tell me what to do. What's a build? And I've actually had to deal with a few people like this before who just aggressively would be like, hey, I'm having trouble, what do I do? I'm like, well, consider the following, and give them a little thing to do. And they're like, dude, I tried that, it didn't work. What do I do? And there's no satisfaction. They never actually try to figure anything out. They never actually try to determine the right tools to play with. They just want to know exactly when to click where, which of course is going to get you absolutely nowhere in the long run. And what's interesting is that a lot of what we're going to look at today is going to be revolving around a core idea of Void Rays fast against Terran and what that actually causes Terran players to do. And we're going to look at a bunch of different examples. And that is a key idea that we're going to see White Raw use in a number of different ways. Actually, 3 different ways today. Now, if any of you are new Protoss players and you're looking for just a general framework to operate under, I want to tell you right now, this isn't one of these, this is what you should do kind of answers, but this is just a general idea. Going 3 Warp Gate early is a very easy, standard, flexible opening. Going Gateway, then Gas, then Geyser, Gateway, then Gas, then Cybernetics Core, and then getting 2 more gateways. So that way you get 3 gateways and warp gates really fast. You can get a lot of Zealots and Sentries to deal with some early attacks. You end up building enough money to expand. You can have enough money to get another tech structure in your base, like a robotics facility, if that's the deviation that you're into. Just a lot of flexibility with that. And The problem with that, though, is that, if you're like a young new Protoss player, who, let's actually say a younger new Protoss player who has absolutely no RTS experience, it sometimes can be a little bit difficult to know exactly what to be doing in those circumstances. It can be pretty intuitive in some spots, but in other ways, it can be a little bit rough because it feels like there's all these possibilities that your opponent can do. And this thing that White Ra is going to do today, it uses some ideas of 3 warp gates and why it's effective, but basically, he gets Void Rays really fast, and it greatly limits the number of options that the opponent can do. And a lot of this happened around like 2000 in Starcraft, way, way long ago, when like broodwar.com was the very famous Starcraft site of the day, where players were talking about this Korean style where, they're all aggressive and they try to do controlling things, and you just always feel forced to do stuff. And really all they were doing is opening in some way that limited your number of responses. Easy examples. If I get a lot of air units, you have to get anti-air units. If you have a bunch of barracks making Marauders and I get air, you have to make some Marines. If I'm getting a lot of things with cloak, you have to get detection. And all the other cases where they don't do that, they literally die immediately. What happens if I open Banshee and my opponent goes for Mass Marauder? Well, he loses because Marauders can't shoot up. Easiest thing in the world. So let's jump directly into the game. This is a game, a little bit older of a game, not dependent on a lot of the early patch changes. We see White Ra doing the White Ra split here, which is 2 at a time. I'm not entirely convinced that that's ideal. Much prefer to send all 6 of them and break them up on the way there. But because we're actually going to be looking at 4 games today, we're going to breeze through just the early parts of this game because everyone is certain that people mine minerals early on. That's totally obvious. Not even really going to talk too much about Metalopolis as a map because it's more the basic concept. And again, if you are a new player, you just need to be aware of a lot of these little concepts. And the general concept of today is, if you do something that forces your opponent into a limited set of actions, you can abuse that limited set. So of course, Gateway, Gas, continuing right along. And by the way, this is White Ra against the very, very famous player, DeMusliM. And here's DeMusliM, of course, doing something very normal with Terran. Spreading out pylons makes it very nice to get some good spotting action, especially on Metalopolis. You can just see over this ridge. There's the Cybernetics core going down, Chrono Boosting going away on the probes, second geyser going down as the Cybernetics core is morphing. Here comes a Stalker fast for Reaper Harass. Typical, ordinary, absolutely nothing special about this. But okay, now we have a Stargate coming up. And this is a pretty old game. And the reason I selected one of these old games is actually 2 reasons. First of all, it shows that White Ra has been able to abuse this idea across all the patches. It's not some sort of thing like, if you abuse this really, really subtle timing, you can get away with an attack. No, it's just huge, broad, basic. If I have a Void Ray, no matter how good or bad a Void Ray is, he must do blah. So that's the first reason that it works over time. The second reason, you can get this from his replay packages on his website, whitera.com, and just go to the replay section. So here it is, the Stargate coming out right now. And if we go over to DeMusliM, he's doing a style that was very popular at the start of the beta and is becoming increasingly popular late in the beta, or should I say was getting increasingly popular late in the beta. It's just this big mass one base style. You get the concussive shell early, you get 2 barracks, one with reactor, one with tech lab, you can get a lot of these ground units out, and just do a lot of huge pushes, and a lot of this emphasizes ghosts, getting those at a later point. White Ra is just making stuff pretty normally. Skipping the warp gate, so that way he can get this Void Ray very fast. Here comes the Void Ray. White Ra, yeah, White Ra never fails to disappoint. And there's little stuff going on. Yeah, there are these Marines and Marauders. There's a battle over the Watchtower. But just look at how this Stargate influences what DeMuslim's doing. So if we just go to the DeMusliM cam, it doesn't really have very much information on this. Does look like he made 1 set of Marines out of this barracks. He's getting a Ghost Academy really, really fast. Yep, there's Stim coming down. Wants to have Stim up very, very early. Just looks like he's doing a general big macro army, but we almost have this Void Ray out. Now, I want you to just be aware for a moment that so far, this barracks with a tech lab has only made 3 Marauders. Those are the only things that have actually popped out from this barracks with a tech lab. The Ghost Academy is going to be done, so there will be some cool stuff coming up in a moment. But he's getting another barracks with a tech lab. What, is my stream crashed? I'm just going to continue talking and just ignore everything that's going on my IRC chat channel. So anyways, what I was saying before I stopped was, notice that this barracks that got this really early tech lab should be generally used to make these tech lab units, the Marauder, should be used for the upgrades. And only 3 Marauders have come out of it. And this other tech lab, or excuse me, this third barracks is also getting a tech lab. But what are we going to see?